In this video, we're taking a look at the multi-viewers inside of the configuration menu of the Ultra 60. So let's go ahead and head over to the menu navigation, configuration, multi-viewer tab. Ultra 60 comes with two VP multi-viewers. These are the main video processor multi-viewers. They live inside of the area that has access to everything. So these are going to be a little bit more dynamic in what you can do with them. And then what you have are the I/O multi-viewers. I/O multi-viewers are included with the I/O processor blocks. So this is just a included feature that comes along with the purchasing of I/O cards, and you'll find these in sections. So what's great is we can use that I/O group help, show you a visual display. So the red connector on all the I/O cards is an I/O multi-viewer. That multi-viewer has access to the 12 inputs and 4 outputs that is in its associating processing section. So you can't get everything onto an I/O multi-viewer spigot, but you can get what's local to it. Now, video processor multi-viewers can be sent out any of the green outputs. So any full output can go out a video processor multi-viewer output, including putting it as, say, a large window inside of an I/O multi-viewer. So you can put a multi-viewer in a multi-viewer if you want. So these multi-viewers are complementary multi-viewers. They come with the I/O cards. There's no additional licenses and fees for them. We had the space, and so we just threw them on. So now we're first going to look at the video processor multi-viewers. So at the top left, you have your layout. So there are 49 different layouts to choose from. You pick the layout that best suits your needs, and then once you've picked that layout, you have your assignments to the right. So global assignments for the multi-viewer layouts include the frame sync label. So the frame sync label is going to show us in the multi-viewer label when you have a frame sync turned on. So this was a request a long time ago in the crossover series, and we've kept it ever since. To the right of that is what we call the shift panel assignment. Every multi-viewer can be assigned to either the main, the satellites, or the virtual soft panel. Those are the 4 independent panels that the system can have control from. Those devices can be associated so that when you press the shift key on those panels, the multi-viewer will change to show you sources in those windows that you've assigned to the shifted side. So this is a really big feature when you factor in that it really extends that capability of even the VP multi-viewers, that you can put additional sources or internal elements, as you can see we'll cover here, on basically the back side of the same window. This is telling us which one's going to control it. Next up is tally. So each multi-viewer, you can set the tally methodology differently. I usually use label. So box mode is going to be the outer of the box. So as we see in the multi-viewer images, I can see that now I've got a green and a red box, and they wrap around the outside. Red is over top of green. So if something is on air and will be in preview, you're only going to see the red on air. Whereas if we go to the label mode, we can see that label mode puts green on the left and it puts red on the right. And if I look at, for example, the expression fill 1 channel, it's currently on air, but technically it's also in preview because that key is not set to be taken off air. Label reverse is for all those people who do it weird and want to have red on the left and green on the right. I kid. It's true. There are places, some places, it's all about where the director and the TD sit. And so sometimes they want preview on the right because they're putting program on the left, which is where the director is sitting. So however you prefer to set up your windows, no problem. You're also able to set up your labels if you wanted to have red on the left and green on the right. You can turn on a clock. And so when we turn on the clock, it can be set to either go with time code. So this will be the LTC input. If that LTC input doesn't have video coming in, or it's video, if that LTC doesn't have any signal coming in, instead you can use the system clock. So the system clock is based on your system menu, global, and it's the time clock that's here. If the time is really 4:31, like it is here, then now, of course, our multi-viewer is going to display that system time clock. You can choose to see it in 24-hour mode, you can choose to see it in 12-hour mode, and you can choose to see it in 12-hour with AM and PM to extend that time. You can position it anywhere you want in the virtual screen. So you'll place it and then it will re-render it. You can also maybe put it all the way down at the bottom. I can see where it's located. So maybe we'll just move it up a little bit on this one, and we can change the size as well. You can select a different foreground color, and you can even select a different background color if you're wanting it to stand out and be visible. You can also use it as a countdown timer. So each multi-viewer has its own separate clock and display. You can also, through custom controls, change this from system time to countdown timer on the fly. So now I can move it to a countdown timer, but this could also be a countdown, it could be a count up, and it can be a countdown, count up. So here we could say we want a 5-minute timer that when it gets to 0, it is going to stop and start counting up. So you can pause timers, you can reset timers. We could set this to 2 seconds so we can see that when we start it, when it hits 0, it starts counting up and it switches to red and toggles the color. So it's very clear that we are now over time and it's displaying for us how many seconds we are over. There are 10 different timers. So not only can you control the direction, but each one could be a separate value. So this could be a 10-minute timer. So you can switch which timer is being displayed, but all the time those timers can be controlled by custom controls and always running. So there's also a way to bring them out in dashboard and look at those timers in a custom panel. One of our other global properties is the overlay. Depending on the configuration, you can use the 16th input to the multiviewer because the maximum count is 16 for video buses that feed each multiviewer. You can use the 16th input to pick a different video source that will now be keyed on top of your multiviewer. This is used heavily for things like view control, or you're able to use this with things where you might build a dashboard custom panel, bring it in on an input, and I want to put that over top of my multiviewer. Maybe you want to build a custom panel which is showing you audio meters, and you wanted to key that over top of your multiviewer by feeding a video input back in from a computer, displaying that and getting you your audio meter. So there's things you can play with. You basically pick a source, and from that source, if we use, we'll use Media 4, for example. So Media 4. And then what you're basically doing is you are keying it on. So here you can see on our screen, we can key it just like we would a normal clip and gain value. And now we're taking the black out of the video. And so it's basically a keyer on top doing a Luma key, and it's going to be able to free you up. It's pretty cool. That's the overlay source. Use it for a lot of fun things. So now gets to the configuration of your multi-viewer itself. So inside of the layout, you can click on a box. So the first group is for the main source, and the second group is for the shifted source. Now there is a setting where I can, for this box, just turn off shift source instead of having to double it up. So here, by setting it to the same thing, when I hold shift, I see the same thing, but I can also do that by turning the shift source off. So this is my source assignment for that window. You can pick any of your physical, internal, media, aux follows, all of these things, because this is a VP multiviewer. So here we have preview. Now, this is always preview. I don't really need to have a green tally showing up, nor do I need to have red, because red will never show up. But maybe I want that white border. However, I can choose to turn the border off if I want, to have a very slight single pixel outline. This helps me in having more of the viewable area. Label. You can turn the label off as well. If you don't need a preview label, you can go ahead and you can turn it off. If you have the label on, you then have other options. I can choose to put the label on the top. Maybe I want to be able to read all the graphics that'll be in the lower section. So for preview, I'll just move the label to the top. For the next section, you have what do you want to display? Do I want a fixed label? What a fixed label means is I can come here and I could put any text I want, and now that is the text that is going to be displayed for just the multiviewer. That way it's not using the switcher input. Or I could use the switcher input, which in this case would be preview. If the source is being fed by a router and I have that TSL UMD name tracking on, I can instead take it from the router. Finally, you have switcher and router, where on that label it's now going to show me something like in3 cam 52, so I will see both names show up on the label. You can turn on aspect markers. So now what you'll see in the preview window is you've got your 4x3 safe zone. So this is letting me know where I'm 4x3 safe, and anything inside of that won't be cropped off when somebody sends it out as SD. And then, as we mentioned, you can turn the shift source on and off. If you have a configuration for a box that you are going to need to send to all the other boxes, it's best to set that one up first, and then you can hit the apply to all. And this will send this exact same configuration to all the boxes. Then just go to the individual ones that you want to tweak to be a little bit differently and set them up. So that's a fast way to create a bunch of these without having to step through them all. On the program side, here I probably would want to again turn off the tallies. And again, I can turn off that border so that I see as much of program as possible with a very small amount of black between the preview and the program and the other boxes. And again, I could choose to have a fixed label. I could choose to move that label to the top so it's out of the way. Or since it's program, I could say, well, I know what preview is. I want program to be as clean as possible so I can read everything on it. Or vice versa. Maybe you're going to keep the label on program because it's already gone out, and it's preview you're going to change. Same thing, you can turn on aspect if you want. And of course, you can set shift source to off because you never want that to change. So here as an example, we went ahead and we've set the primary source of box 1 to be our A-channel server, since that's what we have video that you can see in the multiviewer. However, for the secondary, the shifted source, we've gone ahead and we've put one of the scenes there. So later in a video, when we talk about ultra scene and the scenes and how they work, this is a great way for me to be able to just hold the shift key down, and while holding a shift key, that multiviewer is going to change for you. So now I can see that scene 1 is assigned to that first box, and whenever that shift key was released, it's going to show TRIA A. I set it up because I want tallies, obviously. I want to have a border so it separates the thing next to it. And I've gone ahead and left the label at the bottom. That's just where I put it. And it's set up to use the switcher and router, even though it is not being set the TSL UMD ID. In the future, if they change it, it will automatically update. Until then, I get just the switcher name. So it's pretty smart in knowing not to put anything next to it because nothing is coming in. So there you go. We set up our multiviewer. It's ready to go. When we jump over to the multiviewer, the second VP multiviewer, you see we have all the same configuration capabilities. Here we chose to go with the 4x4, so the maximum 16 channels, and that allowed us to have our previews for ME1, our preview for ME2. ME2, we can see all those. And then we went ahead and we threw in our scenes below. And again, we could turn on that shift multiviewer so we could go and start assigning additional sources. And now you could see how powerful that is if I had a lot more inputs wired into the switcher, being able with a single press of a button dynamically change the multiviewer to show us all those extra sources or those internal sources or ME reentries. I can get to everything instantly. So very powerful feature, something I suggest you start mapping out and thinking about how to use. Tally works the same way. You've got a clock as well. And of course, right now, because we're in the 4x4, 16, you will not have access to an overlay because there is no path for the overlay to come through. If you wanted to set up a clock, you can. And again, if you wanted to set up a timer, you can go ahead and set those timers up separate from the timers in other screens. So timers are always running, and you can display them anywhere in the system. So there's a whole bunch. Feel free to use them. So now we're going to shift gears, and we're going to look at an MV-IO. So the IO multiviewers are these group-specific multiviewers. You still have access and the ability to set as many boxes as you want. So you can go to the full 12 boxes, or sorry, 16 boxes, because 12 of them would be for inputs and 4 of them would be for the outputs. The shift panel also does work. In this layout, it may not make as much sense. However, if I was picking a different layout so I could have more larger size boxes and I wanted to just see some of the others behind them, I could select a different layout. Maybe I wanted a quad split, but I wanted to be able to hold that shift key and see the other sources behind it. So that's fully available. You would just make sure that I came in, and maybe it's my cameras, so I'm going to go 2 and 6. I'm going to go 3 and 7. And then we're going to go 4 and 8. So obviously now on the main panel, if I held the shift, I would see those, and then I would see the other 4 inputs. Or I might do this for outputs. A lot of choices, a lot of options. So yes, they are limited to the 12 inputs and the 4 outputs that are in that group association. However, they have the same ability to throw up clocks and timers. They have the same ability for labels, frame sync labels, and setting up all of their individual switcher boxes. So again, these are complementary items. They come with the switcher. They really add on, and as you add another I/O card, there would be 2 more that come along with that I/O card. So you're going to get 5 of these I/O multiviewers just from the I/O cards, plus 2 of those system multiviewers from the main VidProc. So when we look at the panel and we have our shift key, we can see some of our sources are on the primary side. So this is great. If I want to hold down the shift key, my video now moves. I can see, for example, that scene 1 I had video for, but here on my shift side, I can see where scene 2 is. So I could select scene 2, release the shift, it's in preview, and take scene 2 to air, while scene 1, of course, is on my unshifted side. But if I wanted to see it beforehand, I could have just held it down. I've got all 4 scenes. I got my ME clean feeds. And for mini MEs, I got mini ME 1 and 2 on the program and on the preview side. So they're on the unshifted side. But if I needed to see mini ME 3, I could hold down shift. There's mini ME 3. There's mini ME 4. So tying in the panel and that ability to, while holding shift, put sources that are on the shifted side on the shifted side of the multiviewer really extends the capability and the dynamic nature that we have thanks to shifted multiviewer. Questions? Requests? Suggestions? If you have any of those, please send them to switchers@rossvideo.com and we'll try to get to them in either an email or a video. As always, thanks for watching. Have a great day.